You are listening to Housekeepers Chat by the United States Department of Agriculture from 1927. Disclaimer: this is read from a historic archive document. Do not assume content reflects current scientific knowledge, policies, or practices. This broadcast was aired on Monday, the 28th of March of 1927.
Suggestions on child training comprise the greater part of today's program. Menu and other information approved by the United States Bureau of Home Economics.
Someone wrote me not long ago that I seem to enjoy planning the housekeepers' chats. That is true. I also enjoy reading the thousands of letters which come from all over the United States and Canada in response to the chats. One day last week, without making any attempt to sort the mail, I had in my hand at one time letters from Portland, Maine, Stockton, California, Saskatchewan, Canada, St. Louis, Missouri, and Fort Worth, Texas. My listener in Stockton, California, has a 6-year-old son named Billy, who is just recovering from measles and whooping cough. Let me quote a paragraph from this letter. Dear Aunt Sammy, Billy looked for you each morning when he was ill. When there was anything new on the table, he said, "Is this Aunt Sammy's?" He was just 6 in February, so you see you are quite popular with all ages. He also says, "Well, Aunt Sammy told me to eat this today." So now he eats more green vegetables, as he heard your talk that morning on children. This letter gave me an idea. Do you want me to broadcast a talk to 6-year-olds this spring and tell them what to eat and why? As you know, sometimes the words of a person outside the family have considerable weight with children. The little boy I mention occasionally was also 6 in February. I learn a great deal from Billy. Saturday afternoon I overheard him talking to a young playmate. "The trouble with women," said Billy philosophically, "is that they won't ever let you do what you want to do." "Yes," replied the other little boy very soberly, "and they don't keep their promises the way they want their kids to." Their childish wisdom set me to thinking. Children have so much faith in grown people. It's a pity that we lose their confidence sometimes by telling half-truths and by evading their questions. The children's conversation reminded me of a story which came from the University of Maine. Dear me. It's about spinach, and I had mentally vowed not to mention spinach again for a week, even though it is a most commendable vegetable. Forgive me, please, for I must read the article. Children's choice of food should be guided by parents, but this should not mean that truth is sacrificed. Tactful explanations of the natural benefits of healthful food will accomplish satisfactory results for children who have confidence in their parents' word. This confidence is the most precious bond between parent and child. Protect it. Judith disliked spinach. She declared with all the vehemence that is permitted a 6-year-old that she just hated spinach, that it was bitter, and that it tasted like horrid old grass. Not even when the spinach was fortified by special dessert could she forget this comparison. Her aversion was quite sincere. But Judith ate spinach. She ate large dishes of it whenever it appeared on the table, and even fragments salvaged from the kitchen after the table was cleared. She ate it bravely, persistently, and hopefully, for Judith's life ambition was to have beautiful curly hair like Marion's, and Judith's mother had told her that the whole question of curly hair was a matter of eating spinach. This had been explained in detail so many times that Judith had quite a mental picture of the bitter spinach juice working its way up to her head and wrinkling the hairs inside so that they would grow out in curls. One day after lunch, Marion of the coveted golden curls came over to play with Judith. In the midst of their play, Judith suddenly paused and eyed Marion for a moment. "I know how your hair got curly," she said. "From eating spinach. No, sir. We don't have spinach at our house. My daddy doesn't like it. Then how did your hair get curly?" "It was born that way," answered Marion grandly. "Well, my mother told me that my hair will get curly if I eat lots of spinach." Judith held up a dark wisp of her straight bobbed hair and said, See, it curves a little on the ends." "Pooh," said Marion, who was 2 years older. "That's nothing. And I don't believe it about the spinach." "We'll ask teacher tomorrow," said Judith. "Then you just wait and see. My mother wouldn't tell a lie." Next day after school, Marion, the braver of the two, approached the teacher. "Miss Thomas," she said, "will eating spinach make your hair curly?" "Hardly," said the teacher. That day at lunch, Judith pushed back her dish of spinach. "Mother," she accused, "I've found out that it isn't true about making my hair curly. Mother, it isn't true. It's a lie." And Judith began to cry. It took many days and much diplomacy to form even a thin covering of healing over Judith's wounded feelings. Her mother had broken her own commandment about telling the truth. Being a child, Judith did not reason this very far, but being a sensitive child, she felt vaguely the injustice of grown-up standards. That concludes the article. The moral is obvious. While we're on the subject of children, I want to tell you about a child in our neighborhood whose mother has much difficulty in getting him to bed. Almost every night, unless Robert is too worn out to struggle, he fights against going upstairs in the dark. The mother's methods of discipline are equal to the methods of torture used during the Spanish Inquisition. I was visiting her the other night when Robert begged to stay up. "It's long past your bedtime," said his mother. "Just a little longer," pleaded the child, glancing uneasily toward the stairway. "Robert," warned his mother, "do you remember the policeman we saw on the corner, the policeman with a club? You get right upstairs, or I'll call him." I won't describe the scene which followed, but perhaps you can imagine it. I left as soon as I could, after giving a little advice which was not appreciated. You know how it is. Telling other people how to bring up their children is a very precarious business if you aren't exceedingly tactful. If Robert's mother were only a little wiser, she would realize how dangerous it is to control a child by fear. Listen to this statement from Dr. D.A. Thorne of Boston. "Emotions in children are not to be toyed and played with. It is less dangerous to experiment with the child's eyes or his ears. Fear is an emotion that can be stimulated in so many ways, and has such far-reaching effects that parents need ever be on their guard. Mental clinics offer almost daily evidence of the damaging effect of some infantile fear on human happiness and efficiency. It is extremely unfortunate that many children are disciplined by means of fear. It is either the dog or the dark, the soldier or the bogeyman, or other imaginary beings who are going to carry them off if they are not good. Some parents are always going to give their children away, or go off and leave them. All these threats do one of two things. The children either learn by experience that the threats are but idle prattle, which gives them an undesirable standard to imitate, or the threat leaves an impression which is always associated with an unpleasant emotional tone, frequently expressing itself in unpleasant, even damaging manifestations in later life. Do not cheat the child by making him promises which you have no intention of carrying out. And do not get the whacking and slapping disease, for soon promises and whacks lose their meaning. Cheating and frightening and bribing are all short-sighted methods, often used to the detriment of the child's welfare. Few children are insensitive to praise or blame. Lead them, don't push them. There, I wish Robert's mother might have heard that. Perhaps she would take a little more time to get acquainted with her son, find out why he dislikes going to bed in the dark, and what he is afraid of. Unless she does give him a little more attention, I am afraid Robert is in for a serious mental upset. I should like to spend all my time talking about children today, but perhaps some of you would be disappointed at not getting a menu. So, and therefore, let's have a menu. How about a baked dinner? We can bake everything but the salad, and the dinner can be prepared in a jiffy. Baked pork chop with dressing, baked sweet potatoes, a salad of spring greens, muffins, baked apples, and sponge cake. For the pork chops, make a stuffing as you would for chicken and place a spoonful on each chop. Bake the chops, reducing the temperature to moderate after the chops are well seared. Baste as needed with a little fat and hot water. That disposes of the meat. Even a new housewife knows how to bake sweet potatoes and apples and muffins, so I won't go into detail about those simple foods. The sponge cake, too, is very easy to make. So there you are with a baked dinner complete: baked pork chops with dressing, baked sweet potatoes, Waldorf salad with cooked dressing, muffins and butter, baked apples, and sponge cake.
This broadcast was researched and produced by Breakaway Empire LLC.